It'd been a long time since Sher Mohammad Niazi last worked in his carrot field. Until he defected 6 months ago, he was a Taliban hiding in the mountains and fighting government and foreign forces.
After spending 7 years fighting, I was tired, exhausted. And when I compare these 7 years with the new life I've been living these past 6 months, well, I regret having wasted so much time in battle. But these 6 months during which I've been leading a normal life, I've been happy.
By spontaneously giving up his weapons, Niazi benefited from an amnesty program put in place by the government. He won't be held accountable for anything he may have done as a Taliban fighter. Instead, he's back in his home village of Kuzbihar in eastern Afghanistan with his wife and their 11 children.
Now I can live with my children. It's a new beginning, like a second life. I haven't told them anything about my past because I know they'd be disappointed. Back then, when I was waging war, I used to make up all sorts of excuses to justify my absence. We were fighting for jihad. We thought it was an obligation in Islam. But when we understood that we were fighting fellow Muslims, we couldn't do it anymore.
Since the US-led intervention in 2001 that ousted the Taliban regime, a series of amnesty programs have been coined to encourage insurgents and former warlords to reintegrate Afghan society.
We'll give basic rank-and-file fighters the equivalent of €115 and food. We'll also help them find jobs within 2 months of their defection. But as you know, there's a huge unemployment problem in Afghanistan. Finding jobs for these people is not easy. When they begin their new life as civilians, we can't always help them to the extent we'd like to.
Mullah Abdul Basir used to be a Taliban commander in charge of 100 men. When he joined the program, they all followed suit, and now the Taliban want him dead. And he lives under police protection. We met him in an undisclosed location.
They want to kill me to make an example, to dissuade others from leaving. The government should give me a car and a dozen bodyguards, but also a good stipend to cover my monthly expenses. If other Taliban commanders see that my security is not fully guaranteed, they'll have no interest in defecting.
Basir is also known to have been heavily involved in the kidnapping of British humanitarian Linda Norgrove in 2010. This culminated in the young woman's death during a US rescue operation. But during the interview, he kept denying his role in the tragedy, adding he doesn't regret anything he may have done with the Taliban.
About the past, I have nothing to say. The past is behind us. Regret or no regret, it has no importance.
At the other end of the world, in a village in Scotland, Linda's father says he's chosen to forgive.
I hold no grudge against Mullah Basir in the same way that I don't hold a grudge against the American soldiers who killed Linda in the rescue attempt. But we're very happy that somebody has laid down their arms and to a very small extent has reduced the amount of conflict in Afghanistan.
But many experts highlight the limitations of amnesty programs. Victoria Fontan is the Dean of the Peace and Conflict Studies faculty at the American University in Kabul.
They can yield a degree of success, but really limited. It depends if money keeps flowing towards the programs. It depends if the promises that have been made actually get honored. From the outside world, those programs look more like impunity for former combatants, because really there's no dialogue that takes place between the former combatants, the victimizers, and their victims.
This museum in the heart of Kabul honors the memory of civilian casualties of the war. A selection of their belongings and their stories as told by their loved ones are displayed in memory boxes.
This here represents a symbolic watchtower made up of dozens of victims' belongings found on the sites of terrorist attacks throughout Afghanistan.
Rafiullah Rahimi lost 2 brothers in the last 3 years in attacks attributed to the Taliban. Like many survivors and family members of victims, he sees the amnesty program as a free pass for potential criminals that doesn't allow families to obtain justice. And without justice, he says, it's impossible to forgive.
We did all we could to raise our voices, but unfortunately neither the Afghan government nor the United Nations really care about us, the Afghan people. What happened to our family is unfair. What happened to thousands of other families is unfair. And to this day, the assassins are either roaming free or left unpunished for their crimes.
Victims of terrorist attacks seldom obtain justice. Throughout the 40 years of war, death has become a routine, which people have had to accept.